William stood by the large window of their country home, watching Kate tend to their garden below. The morning sun painted everything in golden light, but his heart felt heavy with worry. For months now, strange things had been happening in there. House doors would creak open by themselves in the middle of the night. They would hear soft footsteps in the hallway when everyone was asleep. Kate tried to brush it off as old house sounds, but William knew something was different. Kate looked up from her roses and waved at him, her smile bright as always. She was trying so hard to keep their family normal and happy. Their 3 children had started asking questions about the noises, too. Little Charlotte had stopped sleeping in her own room, always crawling into bed with them. George had become quiet and nervous, jumping at every sound. And baby Louis seemed to cry more often, at night, as if something was bothering him. William walked downstairs to join Kate outside. The fresh air felt good, but the worry never left his mind. They had moved to this house 2 years ago, thinking it would be perfect for their growing family. The real estate agent had mentioned it was over 150 years old with lots of history. At first, they loved the old wooden floors, the tall ceilings, and the way sunlight streamed through the vintage windows. But lately, the house felt different, almost like it was trying to tell them something. Kate noticed his troubled expression as he approached. She had always been good at reading his moods, even when he tried to hide them. They had been together for so many years, through good times and difficult ones. She knew that William was the type of person who wanted to protect his family from everything, and when he couldn't understand something, it made him feel helpless. That evening, as they put the children to bed, William decided to share his concerns. With Kate, they sat in their living room, the fireplace crackling softly. Kate listened carefully as William described all the strange incidents he had noticed. The way their bedroom door would be open in the morning when they always closed it. At night, how he sometimes felt like someone was watching him when he was alone in certain rooms. The cold spots they would walk through in the hallway, even on warm days. Kate reached for his hand and squeezed it gently. She admitted that she had noticed things too, but didn't want to worry him or frighten the children. She told him about hearing a woman's voice calling softly late at night, so quiet she thought she might be imagining it. About finding toys moved to different places when no one had touched them. About the feeling that someone else was living in their house with them, someone they couldn't see. They decided that night to start paying closer attention to everything that happened. If something was really going on in their house, they needed to understand what it was. William suggested they keep a journal of every strange incident, writing down exactly when and where things happened. Kate agreed, though she hoped they would find logical explanations for everything. As they prepared for bed, Kate hugged William tightly. She whispered that no matter what they discovered, they would face it together as a family. William felt grateful for her strength and support. He knew that whatever secrets their house was hiding, they would need each other to get through it. Neither of them could imagine how much their lives were about to change, or how the truth they would soon discover would test their love and strength in ways they never expected. 3 weeks into keeping their journal, William and Kate had filled 12 pages with strange incidents. The pattern was becoming clearer, and it frightened them both. Most of the activity seemed to happen near the old wooden staircase that led to the second floor. They noticed that their children avoided playing in that area, though they had never told them to stay away. One rainy Tuesday morning, Kate was alone in the house while William took the children to school. She was folding laundry in the master bedroom when she heard it clearly for the first time, a woman's voice singing a lullaby. The melody was beautiful but sad, and it seemed to come from somewhere inside the walls. Kate dropped the clothes she was holding and stood perfectly still, listening. The singing continued for almost 2 minutes before fading away into silence. When William returned home, Kate was sitting at the kitchen table with tears in her eyes. She told him about the singing and how it had made her feel both comforted and deeply sad at the same time. William sat beside her and held her hands as she described the melody. Something about Kate's description seemed familiar to him, though he couldn't place where he might have heard it before. That weekend, he decided to research the history of their house. William spent hours at the local library while Kate searched online databases. What they discovered made their hearts ache with understanding. Their house had once belonged to a young family in the 1890s, A woman named Eleanor had lived there with her husband and baby daughter. According to old newspaper records, Eleanor had died of illness when her daughter was only 6 months old. The records showed that Eleanor's husband had been devastated by her death. He had tried to raise their daughter alone in the house, but grief overwhelmed him. Eventually, he moved away with the baby, unable to bear living in the place where his wife had been so happy. The house had been sold and had changed hands many times over the years, but several previous owners had reported similar experiences to what William and Kate were living through. Kate felt tears rolling down her cheeks as she read about Eleanor's story. She imagined how heartbroken the young mother must have been to leave her baby behind. William pulled Kate close as they realized that the presence in their house might be Eleanor, still trying to care for children and families who lived in her former home. That night, after putting their own children to bed, William and Kate sat in their living room discussing what they should do. They felt a strange mixture of fear and compassion. If Eleanor's spirit was indeed in their house, she didn't seem to want to harm anyone. Perhaps she was just lonely, missing her own family, and drawn to the sound of children's laughter and the warmth of family life. Kate suggested that maybe they should try to communicate with Eleanor, to let her know that they understood her story and weren't afraid of her. William was more cautious, worried about what might happen if they opened that door. But as they talked through the night, they both felt that ignoring the situation wasn't working. Their children were still scared, and the mysterious incidents were becoming more frequent. They decided to try a gentle approach. The next evening, after the children were asleep, Kate stood at the bottom of the staircase where most of the activity occurred. Speaking softly into the quiet house, she said Eleanor's name and told her that they knew her story. She explained that they had children too, that they understood how much a mother's love could transcend even death. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then, slowly, they felt a warm breeze move through the hallway, even though all the windows were closed. The house seemed to settle around them in a peaceful way, as if it had been holding its breath and could finally exhale. William and Kate looked at each other with wonder and hope, feeling that they had taken the first step toward understanding the gentle spirit who shared their home. After Kate's gentle words to Eleanor, the atmosphere in their house began to change in unexpected ways. The frightening incident stopped, but new things started happening that filled William and Kate with both wonder and concern. Toys that the children had lost would appear neatly placed on their beds. When baby Louis cried at night, they would sometimes find him calm and peaceful by the time they reached his room. It's as if someone had already comforted him. Charlotte, their youngest daughter, began talking about her invisible friend who would sit with her during afternoon naps. At first, William and Kate assumed this was normal childhood imagination. But Charlotte's descriptions were so detailed and consistent that they started to worry. She said her friend was a sad lady who missed her own little girl very much. Charlotte would have long conversations with empty air, nodding and smiling. As if listening to responses they couldn't hear, Kate found herself feeling protective of Eleanor rather than afraid. She began leaving small things around the house that she thought the spirit might appreciate. Fresh flowers by the staircase, a photo of their family on the mantelpiece, even a cup of tea that would sit untouched but somehow brought comfort. William watched his wife's growing attachment with mixed feelings. He loved Kate's compassionate heart, but he worried about how deeply she was connecting with someone who was no longer alive. One evening, while William was working late in his study, Kate was reading bedtime stories to the children. As she finished the last story and tucked Charlotte into bed, her daughter looked up with serious eyes and said something that made Kate's heart skip a beat. Charlotte whispered that the sad lady wanted to show them something very important, something hidden in the house that would help her find peace. Kate sat on the edge of Charlotte's bed, trying to keep her voice calm as she asked what the lady wanted to show them. Charlotte explained that there was a special door that most people couldn't see, but that children and people with kind hearts could find it. The sad lady had been waiting for the right family to come live in the house, people who would understand and help her. When William finished his work and came upstairs, Kate pulled him aside and shared Charlotte's message. They stood in the hallway outside their children's rooms, whispering about what they should do. William felt torn between his logical mind that said this was getting too strange, and his heart that trusted his daughter's innocent honesty. Kate I felt strongly that Eleanor was asking for their help, and that they couldn't ignore a mother's desperate plea. The next morning, while the children played in the backyard, William and Kate began searching the house more carefully than ever before. They looked behind furniture, checked inside closets, and examined every wall for signs of hidden spaces. Kate remembered Charlotte mentioning that the door was somewhere the sad lady used to spend time with her own baby, as they searched the master bedroom. Kate noticed something odd about the wall near the large window, where she had often felt Eleanor's presence most strongly. When she pressed against a section of the wooden paneling, it felt slightly different from the rest. William joined her, and together they discovered that part of the wall was actually a hidden panel that could slide to one side. Behind the panel was a small space, almost like a secret closet. Inside they found a wooden box covered in dust and cobwebs. Kate's hands trembled as she carefully lifted it out. The box was old and beautiful, carved with delicate flowers and birds. When they opened it, they found treasures that told the story of Eleanor's short but precious time as a mother. There were tiny baby clothes, yellowed with age but still soft, a silver rattle that caught the light and made gentle music when moved, handwritten letters from Eleanor to her daughter, filled with hopes and dreams for the child's future, and at the bottom of the box, a small portrait of Eleanor holding her baby. Both of them looking radiantly happy. Kate began to cry as she held the portrait, seeing Eleanor's face for the first time.
Oh, yes.
She was young and beautiful, with kind eyes. That reminded Kate of her own feelings when she looked at her children. William put his arm around Kate as they both realized that they had found Eleanor's most precious possessions, the things she had hidden away but could never bear to leave behind. As William and Kate carefully examined each item in Eleanor's treasure box, they felt as though they were being trusted with the most sacred memories of a mother's love. The letters Eleanor had written to her daughter were particularly heartbreaking. Each one spoke of dreams she had for her child's future, advice she wanted to give her, and promises of love that would last forever. Kate read them aloud softly, her voice breaking with emotion. That evening, when the children were asleep, something extraordinary happened. Kate was sitting in the nursery where baby Louis slept, holding one of Eleanor's letters and thinking about the tragedy of a mother separated from her child. Suddenly, the room filled with a gentle, warm light that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Kate felt a presence beside her, peaceful and grateful. Without fear, Kate began to speak aloud to Eleanor. She told her how sorry she was that Eleanor's time with her daughter had been cut so short. She promised that Eleanor's memory box would be treasured and protected. Most importantly, Kate asked if there was anything else Eleanor needed them to do to help her find peace. The warm light seemed to pulse gently, as if Eleanor was trying to communicate something important. William found Kate there an hour later, still sitting in the soft glow that seemed to surround her. When he entered the room, he could feel it too, a presence that was sad but not frightening, loving but lost. Together, they sat in the peaceful light and felt Eleanor's gratitude washing over them like a gentle wave. Over the next few days, Charlotte continued to have conversations with Eleanor, and she began sharing more details about what the spirit needed. According to Charlotte, Eleanor's daughter had grown up and lived a full life, but she had never known about the treasure box her mother had left for her. Eleanor had been waiting all these years for someone to find her hidden gifts and make sure her daughter's family knew how much she had been loved. Kate and William realized they had a mission that would require them to become detectives of sorts. Using the information from Eleanor's letters and the old records they had found, they began trying to trace what had happened to Eleanor's daughter after she and her father left the house. It was challenging work following family trees and records that were over 120 years old. William spent his evenings at the library and online, following leads through marriage records, census data, and newspaper archives. Kate joined local historical societies and reached out to genealogy experts who specialized in 19th century family research. Their search became a labor of love, not just for Eleanor, but for the idea that family connections could transcend time and death. After 2 weeks of intensive searching, they made a breakthrough. They discovered that Eleanor's daughter, named Rose, had indeed lived a long and happy life. She had married, had children of her own, and her family line had continued through several generations. Even more amazingly, they found that Rose's great-granddaughter, a woman named Sarah, was still alive and lived only 2 hours away from their town. The discovery filled William and Kate with excitement and nervousness. How do you contact someone to tell them about a great-great-grandmother's hidden treasure box and the spirit who's been guarding it for over a century? They spent hours discussing the best way to approach Sarah. Wanting to honor Eleanor's memory while not frightening someone who might not believe in supernatural experiences, Kate felt strongly that they needed to make contact, regardless of how strange their story might sound. She believed that Eleanor had guided them to this information for a reason, and that completing this connection was the key to helping Eleanor find the peace she had been seeking for so long. William agreed. Though he worried about how a stranger would react to their incredible tale, they decided to write a careful letter to Sarah, explaining that they lived in a house that had once belonged to her ancestor Eleanor, and that they had discovered some family treasures that belonged to her family line. They would start with the facts they could prove, and only share the more mysterious aspects of their story, if Sarah seemed open to hearing them. As Kate sealed the letter that would hopefully reunite Eleanor with her family line, after more than a century of waiting, both she and William felt that they were about to complete something much larger than themselves. They were helping to heal a wound that had been left open for generations, and giving a mother's love the chance to finally reach its intended destination. 3 days after mailing their letter to Sarah, William and Kate received a phone call that would change everything. Sarah's voice was filled with emotion as she explained that she had been researching her family history for years, but it a dead end when it came to her great-great-grandmother Eleanor. She had always wondered what happened to Eleanor's personal belongings and had dreamed of finding some connection to the woman who had died so young. Sarah asked if she could visit them the following weekend to see Eleanor's treasure box in person. Kate immediately said yes, feeling that this meeting was meant to happen. As they prepared for Sarah's visit, the house itself seemed to hum with anticipation. The children noticed that their invisible friend seemed happier and more peaceful. And Charlotte reported that the sad lady was excited about something special that was going to happen. When Saturday morning arrived, William and Kate felt nervous and excited as they waited for Sarah to arrive. They had placed Eleanor's treasure box carefully on their dining room table. Surrounded by the research materials they had gathered about Eleanor's life, when Sarah knocked on their door, Kate felt her heart racing with the importance of the moment. Sarah was a woman in her 60s with kind eyes that immediately reminded Kate of Eleanor's portrait. As soon as she entered the house, Sarah stopped in the hallway and looked around with wonder. She told them that she felt an incredible sense of warmth and welcome, as if the house was greeting her personally. William and Kate exchanged meaningful glances, knowing that Eleanor was aware of her descendants' presence. When Sarah saw the treasure box and its contents, she began to cry, tears of joy and sadness mixed together. She picked up each item with reverence, especially the portrait of Eleanor holding baby Rose. Sarah explained that she had never seen a picture of Eleanor before, and that looking at her great-great-grandmother's face for the first time felt like coming home to a part of herself she had never known existed. As Sarah read Eleanor's letters to baby Rose, the three adults sat together in the warm afternoon light streaming through the windows. Sarah shared stories that had been passed down through her family about Rose's life. She told them how Rose had always felt a deep sadness about never knowing her mother, and how she had spent her whole life wondering about the woman who gave her life. Kate felt compelled to share the more mysterious aspects of their experience with Eleanor's spirit. At first, she hesitated, unsure how Sarah would react. But something about Sarah's openness and the peaceful atmosphere in the house gave her courage. Slowly, Kate began to tell Sarah about the strange incidents, Charlotte's conversations with the invisible friend, and their growing understanding that Eleanor had never truly left the house, to their amazement. Sarah was not surprised or frightened by these revelations. She explained that women in her family had always been sensitive to spiritual presences, and that she had often felt her ancestors near her during important moments in her life. She said that being in the house, she could feel Eleanor's presence strongly, and it felt like the loving embrace of a grandmother she had never had the chance to meet. As the afternoon progressed, Charlotte joined them and immediately ran to Sarah, hugging her as if she had known her forever. Charlotte whispered to Sarah that the sad lady wasn't sad anymore, and that she wanted Sarah to know how proud she was of all the children and grandchildren who came from baby Rose. Sarah's eyes filled with tears as she realized that Eleanor had been watching over their family line for generations. That evening, Sarah made a decision that surprised everyone. She asked if she could spend the night in the house, to feel closer to Eleanor, and to give them a chance to say goodbye properly. William and Kate immediately agreed, setting up the guest room and inviting Sarah to join them for dinner. Ate together, sharing stories about family and love that transcends death. The house felt more peaceful and complete than it ever had before. After the children were asleep, the three adults sat in the living room with Eleanor's treasure box between them. Sarah spoke aloud to Eleanor, thanking her for waiting so long and for loving their family so deeply. She promised that Eleanor's memory would be honored and that her story would be shared with future generations. As she spoke, they all felt a gentle presence surrounding them filled with gratitude and love. That night, Kate woke to the sound of soft singing, but this time it was not sad. Eleanor's lullaby floated through the house like a blessing, filled with joy and peace. Kate smiled in the darkness, knowing that Eleanor had finally been reunited with her family line and that her long wait was coming to an end. The next morning brought a transformation that William and Kate would remember for the rest of their lives. When they woke up, the house felt different, lighter somehow, as if a weight that had been pressing down for over a century had finally been lifted. The morning sunlight seemed brighter as it streamed through the windows, and even the air felt fresher and more peaceful. Sarah joined them for breakfast. Her face glowed with a serenity that touched everyone around the table. She told them that she had experienced the most beautiful dream during the night. In her dream, she had met Eleanor face to face, and her great-great-grandmother had thanked her for completing the circle of love that connected their family across time. Eleanor had shown her visions of baby Rose growing up loved and cared for, and all the generations that followed living full and happy lives. Charlotte came bouncing down the stairs with excitement, announcing that her invisible friend had said goodbye to her during the night. According to Charlotte, the sad lady was not sad anymore because her family had found her treasures. Now she could go to where her own baby was waiting for her. Charlotte's innocent understanding of what had happened brought tears to everyone's eyes as Sarah prepared to leave that afternoon. She insisted that William and Kate keep one special item from Eleanor's treasure box. She chose Eleanor's silver rattle, saying that it should stay in the house where Eleanor had once sung lullabies to baby Rose. Sarah wanted future families who lived in the house to have a reminder that it had been filled with love and that some connections are strong enough to last forever. William and Kate accepted the gift with deep gratitude, promising to care for it and to share Eleanor's story with their own children as they grew older. They all agreed to stay in touch, and Sarah invited their family to visit her so she could show them more of Rose's descendants in the family tree that Eleanor's love had helped to flourish. In the weeks that followed Sarah's visit, William and Kate noticed that their house had become everything they had originally hoped it would be. The children played freely in every room, no longer avoiding the staircase or feeling nervous in certain areas. Charlotte stopped having conversations with invisible friends, but she often talked about the beautiful lady who had been sad, but was now happy with her family in heaven. Kate continued to leave fresh flowers by the staircase occasionally. It's not because she felt Eleanor's presence anymore, but as a way of honoring the memory of a mother whose love had been so strong it lasted beyond death. William found that he slept better at night, no longer listening for mysterious sounds or worrying about unexplained occurrences. Their experience with Eleanor had changed them in profound ways. Kate felt more connected to the idea that love never truly dies, and that family bonds can transcend any obstacle, even death itself. William had learned that sometimes the most logical response to mysterious situations is to approach them with an open heart and compassion rather than fear. 6 months later, Kate discovered she was pregnant with their 4th child. As she stood, In the nursery, preparing for their new baby's arrival, she felt a gentle warmth surrounding her that reminded her of Eleanor's presence. But this time, it felt like a blessing rather than a haunting, as if Eleanor was sharing her joy in new life and the continuation of love from one generation to the next. The silver rattle that Sarah had left with them found its place in the new baby's nursery, a beautiful reminder of the mystery they had solved together. When friends asked about the antique rattle, Kate and William would share Eleanor's story, helping to ensure that the young mother's memory would live on in the hearts of everyone who heard about her enduring love. Years later, when Charlotte was old enough to understand the full story, she would tell her parents that helping the sad lady find her family was one of the most important things they had ever done together. William and Kate agreed, knowing that their experience with Eleanor had taught them that love is the strongest force in the universe, capable of bridging any gap and healing any wound, no matter how much time has passed. Their house remained peaceful and filled with joy, no longer holding secrets, but instead holding the beautiful memory of a mother's love that had finally found its way home. Eleanor's story had come full circle, and in helping her find peace, William and Kate had discovered deeper meanings about family, love, and the connections that bind us all together across time and space.